The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
And so it begins. Maybe the oddest big event on the sports calendar. The 3-week NCAA tournament. 3 weeks from tonight, we will crown a national champion with one shining moment. And over the course of the 3 weeks, you will become familiar with some of the names and some of the teams in this tournament. At this point, casual fans have no idea about any of the players. Oh, sure, they know some of the teams because of the schools. They've been there before, Duke and North Carolina and Michigan and Kentucky and Kansas. Yeah, they're all in. But this is a year especially that, I mean, outside of Cameron Boozer, maybe one or two other guys that might be near your market, like, you know, I know Cameron Boozer and like Diggy Coit. You know, Diggy Coit's not playing in this tournament. Maryland's out. So, you know, it's something that we all grasp onto because it's fun, right? And it's got this pace to it that you can kind of go, oh, wow, look, buzzer beater there. Oh, upset, although upsets are becoming less and less frequent. It's like Tony does this every year on his show. He has Phil Cipaglia's mom on, Phil's mom. Phil is a producer at ESPN, has been there a long time, and his mom lives in Buffalo, and she doesn't know anything about sports. And it's a very fun little segment. She mispronounces the names of the schools and, you know, picks some of these wild upsets. And one year, she picked George Mason to go to the Final Four, and they did. Not because she had studied the rosters or looked at the Ken Palm. No, she just, you know, was randomly picking games and teams, and that's what this is about. And anybody who wants to say, oh, well, it won't matter if they expand the tournament, realize that this thing became what it has become because of the office pool, because of the printable bracket. Used to be that somebody in the office would have to tabulate it round by round. They don't do that anymore. You just sign up for CBS Sports or one of these other online sites, and you're able to keep up with who's leading the office pool, and that's what has made it so impressive. Now, you know, maybe because we don't really deal with sheets of paper anymore, and because we deal with websites, it's not as important. But the 64 was just perfect. It was just perfect. They went to 68, and I think that most people don't really get into this until Thursday. Well, we got 2 days and 4 games in between. We got 2 games tomorrow night, 2 games on Wednesday, with the winners of those games being fed to the number 1 seeds. Or, no, I guess not all number 1 seeds, because you've got some seeds like Miami of Ohio is an 11, SMU is an 11. So we have some of that. But the point being is that we have these play-in games, and it's like, oh yeah, and the other thing about the bracket is they basically give you the winner. You know, you don't really need to pick those games. Well, if you don't need to pick those games and it doesn't bust your bracket, like, you know, somebody may go crazy this year and say, yeah, I think Texas can win it all. Well, Texas is an 11. I think that SMU might have. Well, SMU, some would argue, shouldn't have even gotten in the tournament. So you could do that, but you'd have to really, you'd really have to go out on a limb to do it, and it just messes up with the symmetry of the office pool. That's what I'm getting at there. But all right, is what it is. Off we go, and I think I'll be watching a lot of it. I think you'll be watching a lot of it, and I always watch the championship game start to finish right through one shining moment, and I'm sure I'll be doing that 3 weeks from tonight. As far as the locals, yeah, terrible year for Maryland, terrible year for Georgetown. George Mason, GW, came up short. AU is in a one-bid league, the Patriot League. Holy Cross won it for like the 12th time, so AU didn't get in this year. And there is one local that is going, and this has become so worn, I hate to use it, but let's just get it in there because we're going to use it a lot during the next 3 weeks. Howard is going dancing. So Howard is the one local school that made it, and I'm kind of surprised that Kenny Blakeney is still there. When he took over at Howard, they were a complete disaster. They had gone through seasons where they'd win 3-4 games, and he has made them into a very strong team in the MEAC where they're competing for the title year after year after year, and he's got a blue blood background. He played at Duke, coached under Mike Krzyzewski at Duke. I know he's probably in his 50s, but it would seem to me that somebody would be interested in giving him a high-paying job, and maybe he's been offered that, and maybe he just likes it where he is. But he's done a very good job, an outstanding job with Howard. Howard was a nowhere until he got there, and has made them very competitive year after year after year. So they're back in. Unfortunately for them, they have to go to Dayton. I know that they were going to be a 16 seed coming out of the MEAC, but, you just kind of get buried there. They'll be the ones to kick things off tomorrow night. They have the first game. It's against UMBC. UMBC is in for the first time since they pulled what was, at that time, the all-time shocker. It's since happened again, but they were the first 16 seed to beat a 1 in Virginia. Virginia number one, like what Duke is this year. And the following year, Virginia won it all. That's how shocking it was because a lot of the players came back. But the UMBC won that game. And so those two teams are going to face off in Dayton tomorrow night. Melissa Kim is with Channel 9. She was talking to Kenny Blakeney after the bid was announced last night.
We talked before the very first game of the season, and you said, I don't know what kind of team I have this year. You had 11 new guys. How do you go from, I don't know, to going to March Madness?
I think it's a testament to all of our guys. We have great character guys. They were able to buy in, and without them being able to kind of understand our culture, wanting to understand our culture, be a part of a winning program, doing all the things that they do in the community, killing it in the classroom with over a 3.5 GPA, and then being champions on the court. I'm just so proud and happy for our guys to have this experience.
And you and Coach Ty Grace are making history here. The first time that both teams have gone to the NCAA tournament at the same time. How important is that for the future of this program?
Well, I think it's a testament to our leadership up top with Dr. Wayne Fredericks, our president of our university, Mr. Kerry Davis, our athletic director, them having the courage to select me with an unconventional resume. And then, they hired Ty before I was here, and what a wonderful job her and her program's done over the years. And I'm so proud of the young ladies that are part of our women's program. They carry themselves with so much class and dignity.
You've gone to the NCAA tournament 3 times now in the last 4 years. What's the secret? What's the magic here?
Our 7 a.m. practices. Cup of coffee at 6:40 in the morning and 7 a.m. practices, and our guys have done we've had 3 different teams. We've had a team that we've kind of shuttled guys in and out, 5 in, 5 out, a little bit more like a hockey transition. We've had a team where we won it with 6, 7 guys, and then this year's team, like you said, 11 new guys, a different roster. Again, it's just a testament to our guys, and I think the job that they've done on and off the court.
I know you guys just found out about UMBC. How much film study are you going to have to do here now?
I just know their coach. Anything else about them, I have no idea.
Yeah, and that's the rhythm of the way this works. You get your bid announced, you go immediately into the tape room, you work all night. They're going to travel today, right? Travel to Dayton today and play tomorrow night against UMBC. The winner literally gets fed to the Wolves, the Wolverines of Michigan, number 1 seed. They're going to play in Buffalo on Friday as well. I guess in the 3 years they haven't won. As far as I know, they have not won of the other 2 years that they made it. So they got a shot this year against UMBC, which won their league, knocking off Vermont. I call that the Tyler Coppenrath Invitational because he got Vermont there at least 2 times back in the day, and Vermont this time had to play at UMBC, and UMBC won the game, and so they move on. Maryland is in, the women are in, and they're in for the 16th straight year. Although it's a little bit different than it has been in the past. Maryland has been able to play home games in the first round of the tournament. This time they have to go to Chapel Hill, and they're going to play Wright State. This is Brenda Fries, the coach.
This time of year, a building, a home court doesn't guarantee you a win. So for us, we just want to be taking all the lessons we've learned from this incredible schedule that we've played all season long with this team and go out and play our best 40 minutes so we can advance. And
that'll be Friday night against Wright State. The Howard women are in. First time that Howard has had both the men and the women in, and the women are going to play Saturday against Ohio State. So That's going to be one of those David versus Goliath things. The usual amount of carping that goes on with this tournament, even though it's now 68, there's some that feel that they got screwed. And Bruce Pearl is not going to give this up, this Pearl clutching that he's doing, that he left Auburn just before the season started, turned the team over to his son. This is not an uncommon move. John Thompson did this to some degree, quit in the middle of the season at Georgetown and turned the team over to his longtime assistant, Craig Esherick. Bobby Knight did it with his son at Texas Tech in the middle of the season. This was just before the season, like 2 weeks before. And Pearl turned Auburn over to him, and Auburn was on track to make it, had a terrible finish, finished one game over 500. Pearl is still being paid, Bruce Pearl being paid by Auburn, and had this take after his team was one of what they called the first four out, after Auburn was one of the first four out, along with Davis and Kellogg on the set. And this is how they looked at the so-called snub, with the Pearl continuing to fetch.
With respect to Oklahoma and Auburn, Oklahoma only 4 quad one wins, Auburn only 4 quad one wins, and then I think Auburn losing at home to Ole Miss was a quad 3 loss. They win that game, I think they're in.
That turned out to be a better game than what people thought it was going to be, because Ole Miss did so well in the SEC tournament. Auburn beat 3 champions this year. They beat Florida, they beat St. John's, and they beat Arkansas. They played the toughest schedule in the country. Don't know they were rewarded for it. It's hard to get another couple of SEC teams in when the SEC already has 10.
Yeah, and I think the losses, when you look at, we've not had a team 1 over 500 overall make the field as an at-large. We've had a couple that were 2 over 500, and they had a similar strength of schedule. So I think it was just the accumulation of losses that negated some of the big wins that Auburn has, because the first criteria is wins and losses. And I think that ultimately did Auburn.
And again, the results metrics, Auburn is 44th in wins above bubble. That's kind of right on that cut line. Even a couple of notches above would have helped. But the bottom line, we always say it, if you've put yourself on the bubble, you put the game in the hands of the refs.
There's no question. You're going to either win your way in or lose your way out. For me, you always say, okay, if you're going to put one in, who would you take out? For me, SMU with a 191 out-of-conference strength of schedule. That, I don't know that they should have been rewarded. They only won 5 games away from home. And for me, it would have been either Oklahoma or Auburn taking that last spot.
Okay, well, give it up, because they didn't make it. And SMU is in. And they get Miami of Ohio. And there are some that think, even though they finished undefeated in the regular season, they lost in a one-bid league tournament, they should not get in. But I was happy to see them make it. They're going to have to go play in Dayton. That's going to be, I guess that's Wednesday night, right? That's Wednesday night with Ohio, Miami of Ohio playing SMU. And, really, get over it. Get over it. Exactly as Clark Kellogg said, wins and losses. You finished one game over 500. Stop complaining that you didn't get into the field of 68, okay? I'm old enough to remember, and here he goes again, old enough to remember 1974 when Maryland was number 3 in the country and NC State was number 1, and Maryland took them to overtime, one of the great games ever played in the ACC tournament final, and didn't go to the tournament. They had a chance to win it all. Had played UCLA within 1, had played overtime against NC State in the ultimate game in the ACC final, didn't get in, changed the tournament. They went to 32. Now it's at 68. Stop complaining. And that really was the only real kvetch of the whole thing. There really wasn't a whole lot to complain about, which made the unpacking of the process a little bit easier for Keith Gill. Keith Gill is the commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference, and he's the head of the NCAA selection process committee. And when he was on, he explained that the few outstanding questions about why certain teams didn't make it.
Keith, what would you say either in seeding or selecting caused the biggest debate in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, I would certainly say from the seeding standpoint, the Big Ten tournament. At the end of the day, we had Michigan on the 2 line, and then when we scrubbed it, when the Big Ten tournament results came out, Arizona flipped to the 2 overall, and Michigan went to the 3 overall. And then when you look at Purdue started at the 11 line, and that's on the 3 line, and then with that result, they scrubbed up to the 8 line, which got them a 2 seed.
Keith, this is Seth Davis. Congratulations on being done. I want to ask about Miami of Ohio and VCU. So Miami, Ohio, as the 44th overall seed, that's the lowest of all the at-larges, but I know that doesn't necessarily mean they were the last team selected. If you could let us in on that conversation. Then also VCU being behind leads me to infer that if VCU doesn't win today, they would not have been in the tournament. Could you just address those two teams, please?
Yeah, that's the great question, Seth. Miami, Ohio was not the last team selected into the field. So they came in before NC State, Texas, and SMU. And when we did our scrubbing process, those teams scrubbed above them relative to the predictive metrics and also the difference in the quality of the wins. So they scrubbed up above them. And then with regards to VCU, they would not have been in the field if they had not won the Atlantic 10 automatic qualifier.
Wow.
Good thing they did.
Yes,
Yeah,
indeed. That's how you take the guesswork out of it.
Commissioner Gale, this is Coach Bruce Pearl. Hey, the teams that were on the bubble, what were the key metrics that sort of made the difference? We kind of look at SMU and Texas and Auburn and Oklahoma, kind of the last couple in, the last couple out. What were the metrics that made the difference?
Yeah, I think when you look at that, the quality of wins is where it came down. When you take SMU was the last team selected into the field. You look at it, they had wins when these teams were at full strength over North Carolina, Louisville, and Texas A&M. 6 games ago, they lost one of their important players, Edwards, and they're 5-6 they've lost 5 of 6 of those games. He's coming back. He's the 3rd leading scorer, defensive player, and so the quality of wins and obviously them getting back to full strength allowed them to kind of get that last spot.
Hey, Keith, I'm wondering, were there any challenges in the bracketing that you might be able to share, or was that all fairly smooth once you got the actual selection and seeding done?
Yeah, that's a great question, Clark. And we did have some bracketing irregularities. If you look in the first 4 game between Texas and NC State, normally we try to avoid repeat matchups. Those teams played in Maui earlier this year. But with the way that the SEC filled the bracket and the ACC filled the bracket, we couldn't find another first 4 matchup. We also couldn't put them in a different region, and so we ended up having to relax our principle there, which we're allowed to do, so that we could complete the field.
Keith, in terms of injuries, the only thing that really jumped out at me was North Carolina is a 6. Was Caleb Wilson a factor there, and were there other injury situations that really factored into where teams were seeded?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time obviously talking about Caleb Wilson, and that certainly impacted the way we thought about North Carolina. I would say the same with JT Toppin. We actually talked about kind of Duke and kind of some of the injuries that they're going through, and just noted they're going to be closer to full strength as they get closer to the NCAA tournament. So I do think injuries, big theme, player availability, a big theme, and that dominated a lot of our conversation as a committee.
That was very good and concise, I thought, by Keith Gill last night, explaining what went on. There wasn't as much controversy this year, so that had something to do with it. The only thing that was out there was Bruce Pearl complaining that Auburn did not get in. So off we go. Whatever happens over the next 3 weeks, I don't think is going to match some of what we've had in the past, because the way the system works in college basketball, the ability to move from team to team without sitting out a year. And on top of that, the money. And Gordon Hayward was on the morning show last week. His miss is probably the most famous miss in tournament history. Came close to going in against Duke. If it does, that gives Butler the NCAA championship, knocks off the bluest of the blue bloods. And I don't think anything would have topped that, maybe in the history of the tournament. But he just missed. But he also said this. He said, look, that was the end of my second year. He stayed only 2 years at Butler. He had a really good freshman year, and he would have gotten a lot of money to go someplace else. And he said that would have been hard to turn down. So he might have been starting at Kentucky, or he might have even been at Duke if they had the NIL and they had the transfer portal, which allowed you not to have to sit out a year. So now that we have that, the top players from the mid-majors, they're going to big schools and leaving behind teams that make the NCAA tournament because they're the best in their league, but we're seeing fewer and fewer upsets, which has made this tournament what it is. We look at college football. Yeah, you could say Miami as the 11th seed in the 12-team playoff, making it was something of a Cinderella, but it's Miami. It's the U. The U is a football school. They won national championships with Jimmy Johnson before, so it's a different dynamic. It's still fun. The fact that you can go from game to game, if your game is a dog, you just look at the top of your screen. Oh, True TV has a great game going on. TNT, CBS, I can move around and do that. But what made March mad isn't quite what it used to be. Like, Larry Bird is considered to be the one who really changed the whole dynamic. Indiana State, are you kidding me? Indiana State in the national championship game? It was because of Larry Bird. And Larry Bird could have left even then as a junior eligible. The NBA had started taking players, who had not, played for 4 years, understood. But even at the age of, I think it was 23, wanted to come back for another year and see if he could finish the process. And darn near did. Almost beat a much superior Michigan State team with Magic Johnson and Greg Kelser and Jay Vincent. They all played in the NBA. Larry Bird, aside from Carl Nicks, who got like a cup of coffee, only one from Indiana State. Coming up, we used to joke about this. Now it's a fact. How much does it cost to win a national championship? We'll get to that next. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Once upon a time, we used to have a term called student athlete. I mean, it's a joke, really. Yeah, student athletes. And it was invented by Walter Byers, who was head of the NCAA, so that they wouldn't have to pay the players. If it got to court, they're students, they're on scholarship. No. And there were some, ridiculous things in there that nobody followed. And, the $50 handshakes that always went along with a good performance from the boosters. And there were guys who had no-show jobs. And, one time they even gave the players what they had called laundry money, $15 a month. And then that started to be abused, so they did away with that. So now it is what it is. It's professional sports. And you got to have big dollars to win a national championship. And I think the days of schools like George Mason going to the Final Four are over. I'm sorry to say. It just doesn't work that way anymore. And Seth Greenberg, still doing analysis, very good analysis on ESPN, former coach at Virginia Tech. He was on with Dan Patrick on Friday, and here's what he says is the cost of truly being competitive to win a national title.
Last year it was around 12. Now, Kentucky spent 22, but last year it was around 12. But if you think about 3 years ago, it was $4 billion. All right? 3 years later, it's 12. It's like, it seems like it's doubling. Now, you say, well, how is that possible? I mean, the total amount of rev share money is $20.5 million, right? I mean, I think that's the number allegedly people are supposed to be working on. Look, there's no guardrails. There's no rules. Everyone's going to find a way to circumvent these things. They're going to find collectives. They're going to find real NIL deals within their communities that they can justify. That's just the way it is. Eventually, the Power Fives are going to break off. We're still going to have the NCAA tournament, but it's going to be even more of the haves and have-nots. I think like the 16 bottom Division I schools will be the opening round. That's my thing. And they'll play their way into the main bracket. So you'll get the best of the one-bid leagues in the field. But if you're an athletic department and you're spending these millions and millions and millions of dollars, here's the deal. You want a return on the investment, and that's playing in the NCAA tournament. That's playing in the college football playoffs. You can't spend all that money and not get a return. Then all of a sudden, there's donor fatigue. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's donor fatigue. It is real. And, it's great that there are a few programs that have these monster boosters, but not everyone has them. So, eventually I think they're going to be break-off, and we're going to more than we're doing now, professionalize college athletics.
It's got to be total professional. And to me, going to school should be an option. You want to take advantage of the classes while you're there? Fine. But you're not there to go to class. You're there to play the sport. Use this example all the time. A player wants to sign up for a lab that meets on Tuesday night. He can't do it. He can't be in that class because they have games those nights. Doesn't work that way, or they're traveling. So it's anything they're pretending it to be right now soon has to go away. And here's Seth saying, okay, it's about $12 million to compete. Jim Boeheim, whose school is not good anymore, they just fired the coach who succeeded Boeheim after 3 years. Boeheim was on with Patrick, and here's his estimate of what it costs to compete.
$10 million basketball is the right. I mean, you could do it with 8 or something, maybe, if you get lucky. Also, you could have 10 and not do it. There's programs that have 10 and don't do it. There's programs that have spent 15 or 20 and are not doing well. I mean, you still got to coach. You still got to get the right players. Indiana is the greatest example, Indiana football, of, a great coach, getting the right guys, not all 4 stars, but, good players, and get them into a system. Vanderbilt basketball, same thing. Did a great job this year. And they got the money, they have a good coach. It can be done, and the good thing about it, you do it in 1 year. And, everybody criticizes the portal, and obviously there's a lot not to like about the portal and NIL, but there's 40 Europeans over here who are really good players because of NIL. There's 40 seniors that are staying in college because of NIL. So you look at the product out there, it's good basketball. This is the best basketball has been in a while, really since the portal opened, when it was all guys leaving early. Guys aren't leaving early anymore because they know they're not going to get the chance. They'll be in the G League or something. So that's helped college basketball. It'd be better if we get to the point we have a salary cap, we have contracts, and, all that stuff. That's going to happen, and you need some kind of cap. They have it in the pro leagues, and we're a pro league. It's pro basketball, pro football. College is pro sports. I mean, I'm hearing soccer players, a volleyball player got $300,000 someplace. Where did we, in the beginning, we thought that would be the total amount of money your whole team would get, maybe a couple $100,000. But obviously, when you get boosters involved, they want to win. And the boosters with big money, it's a drop in the bucket for some of them. So we are where we're at, but we got a great game as far as on the court. I mean, Florida State gave Duke everything they wanted last night. Probably could have won easily, or not easily, but they could have won. And, we had a great game with North Carolina coming back. And, we've had great games in the tournament. And I think that's a reflection of what's going to happen in the NCAA tournament. And by the way, Miami, Ohio has got to be in the tournament. I mean, people that are talking about that are just crazy. No, they wouldn't be at the top of a conference, but they could be in the mix in a conference. But that's not the point. They won 31 straight games. I saw them play 8 times. I doubt if there's any coach or any pundit out there who saw Miami, Ohio play 8 times. And they have a good team. Are they going to beat Florida? No. I mean, they're not beating Florida. Those days are over. That good mid-major school is not going to the Final Four unless something just crazy happens. The teams at the top they're just too good.
That was Jim Boeheim Friday. Miami of Ohio did get in. They're going to play SMU on Wednesday in Dayton for a shot to get to the next round. As far as how good they are, a lot of people still think they should not have made it. The schedule was not good, but part of that too is they can't schedule teams. Nobody wants to lose at home to Miami of Ohio, and so that has prevented them from getting some of the games that they would have liked to have gotten. Boeheim has been beating this drum for a long time. Gary Williams has done it, and I think most coaches would say this is the way they would like to have it because it gives you job security. You make the NCAA tournament, you're going to be okay, unless it's one of those years where they go, no, you come up short. We're too big of a program. You have to get to at least the Sweet 16, and you're not doing it. But what Boeheim is proposing is almost doubling the size of the tournament, and here he is making his case that wouldn't be a bad thing.
There's 2 things that are important. Number one, we don't have the best 68 teams in the field. All right? We have automatic qualifiers who are not in the best 68 in the country. So you're leaving out teams that are in the top 50 or so in the country with the system we have now. I'm not saying those teams shouldn't be in. They should. Let's let them go. They're not going to win anymore, but let them in. But you add 6, 8, 10, whatever number it is, you make 10 or 12 fan bases happy. You make 12 players happy, and you make coaches secure in their job if they're in the NCAA tournament, whether it's expanded or not, and unless you're at a couple places. But you're in the tournament. And what have you lost? After 1 week, you have a better field than you had before, because the weaker teams are all going to be out. The better teams are going to be in. And you haven't diluted the tournament. You've made the tournament better because you have better teams in the tournament, and more players and more fans and more coaches are in the tournament. What's to not like about that? Hey, I remember John Wooden is a great coach and a great man. He wanted the tournament to stay at 24. And he knew what he was doing, right? But they went to 48, tournament got better, right? The tournament went to 64, tournament got better, right? Tournament's at 68, tournament's still getting better. It's not going to get worse, and you're going to add teams, players who are good. I mean, we got in 1 year, we were probably the last team in. We could have been the first team out easily. We went to the Final Four. So there are teams that are going to get left out that could get going. I mean, Florida State's not going to get in the tournament. They don't deserve it. But if they played a little better earlier, they can beat it. Their coach said it. We can beat anybody in the country. I think he's right. They're really playing good. But that's my feelings. I don't think if you really think it through, you can argue that. The people that say, oh, we can't expand it, they say, well, it's going to dilute the tournament. No, it isn't. They say, well, bad teams will get in. No, they won't. They'll be good. They won't be great, but they'll be good. And the best teams are still going to win at the end. And I think you have another Dayton weekend, during the week. Someplace you can watch TV. There is no reason not to have it. And I know almost 60, 70% of the media is against expanding it. Well, if it was still at 24, most of those guys wouldn't have a job.
Okay. I don't know if it was ever 24. I think it was 25. You had first-round buys. And, UCLA often didn't have to cross the Mississippi River. The year that they lost to NC State, that was in Greensboro, basically a home court for NC State. They went to 32 off that awful snub of Maryland, or the way the system worked, that Maryland couldn't go by losing to NC State in the ACC final. Then they went to 48, and with 48, as I recall, they did have first-round buys. And when NC State went to the tournament and won in 83, the only reason they got in was that they won the ACC tournament. There was 48 then. It went to 64 in 1985. And 1985 was the year that Georgetown lost to Villanova. Villanova might not have gotten in because they didn't win the Big East tournament, but they got in as an at-large because the tournament had expanded. And as it turned out, you had 3 teams from the Big East make the Final Four. St. John's and Georgetown, they had played 3 times during the regular season. One of them was 1 or one was 2. And then Villanova getting in, and the other one was Memphis State, which later had to vacate because Dana Kirk was cheating his butt off. But, I don't think it would make the tournament better. I don't. I just think there'd be too much. And the one thing I would say this about college basketball is they haven't made the season later. They did it in college football. Used to be New Year's Day was pretty much done. I think this year it's going to be, or 2027 when they have the next championship. I think it's going to be as late as like the 24th of January. They get this over the first week of April. What if you went a little bit longer with it? Could you do that? Could you play the? You probably could. You could probably, if you had another weekend, you could probably play the championship in the middle of April. Everybody used to clear out for baseball. Well, baseball's not as important to the picture anymore, and baseball's starting earlier. Baseball used to start April 15th. Now they're starting. The Nationals are starting a week from Thursday? Was it like the 26th, something like 25th? So they start early. So maybe they could do that to slip all that in. Commanders, they were supposed to make a splash in free agency. At the moment, it feels more like a tinkle. We'll get to that next. It's the Andy Poland Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
We are pretty much done with the splashy free agent signings. The Commanders, what they did, we'll get to that in a second. If you don't know, Josh Johnson keeps on rolling. Man, this guy is incredible. Finished up the season for the Commanders, started the last game of the season, which he won against the Philadelphia Eagles. And now he has got another team, or a team that he's familiar with because it's his third go-round with them, the Cincinnati Bengals. Played with them in 2012 and 2019. It's his 15th NFL season coming up, his 19th in his football career, which started at San Diego State. He did not get a scholarship. He had to pay his own way. Played for Jim Harbaugh there. That's how long ago that was. And then has managed to stay employed as a football player all these years, not necessarily in the NFL, other leagues. Played in the UFL, the XFL. I mean, he has been around. Drafted by Tampa Bay in 2008, 22 separate stints across 17 professional teams in multiple leagues. His stops in the NFL: Tampa Bay, San Francisco, Cleveland, Baltimore, Giants and Jets, Houston, Indianapolis, Buffalo, Oakland. They don't have a team in Oakland anymore. Detroit, Washington, Denver, and the Bengals, plus spells in the UFL's Sacramento Lions, the AAF's San Diego Fleet, and the XFL's Los Angeles Wildcats. He has 11 career starts, 2-9 record. Those 2 wins, by the way, both with Washington, one as a Redskin and one as a Commander. His career totals include 2,600 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, and 18 interceptions. That's like one year. He's completed 58% of his passes, career passer rating of 71.1. 481 yards of rushing with 2 touchdowns, averaging 5.1 yards a carry. Here's the depth chart. Joe Burrow, of course, is the starter. Josh Johnson and Sean Clifford competing for the backup job. And, man, look, he seems to be a very good guy, steadying influence in the locker room. And I think guys can appreciate his journey. That they draw some inspiration on that. That guy wants to play football so bad that he will jump from team to team. He'll jump from league to league. He just wants to do his craft. I think he's about 40 years old. How many guys are left from the 2008 draft? Not too many. Not too many. Maybe a couple along the way. Aaron Rodgers came in, I believe, 2005. Maybe there's a couple of kickers in there, but to have stayed in the league, or stayed in football, I should say, because this is only year 15 coming up in the NFL, only, I say. But to have been employed as an NFL quarterback and a professional quarterback in between, not necessarily NFL, that's impressive. That is a story. And I think you get to keep your jersey from each stop. So you think about the 22 different stops that he's made. That's a collection of jerseys, and somebody ought to buy that and display it in a museum or something. Anyway, the top signing by the Commanders, Odafe Oweh, he gets a $100 million deal, $68 million guaranteed. That they hope to get more of a pass rush this year. Dorrance Armstrong missed most of the year with a torn ACL, so he's coming back. And Oweh is a guy who's got some familiarity here. He's from Jersey, played at Penn State, and was asked at a news conference over the weekend what brought him to Washington and what he will bring to Washington.
Just knowing my spots, understanding like the down and distance, the intensity of the specific down, understanding like if it's run or pass, and really taking advantage of that and getting that jump on the count, and then like I said, understanding when you have that one-on-one, so you can scheme certain rushes that you do, go power first, and then, maybe want to change it up, go speed after that. So, just playing the game of pass rushing, I think I've gotten better at that.
What intrigued you about Washington? Why did you want to sign here?
It's close to everything I've come to know growing up. Obviously, I've grown up in Jersey, went to school at Penn State, went to high school in Jersey. Obviously, my first five or so years were in Baltimore. I'm familiar with the area. My sister is here, so it just made the most sense. Love the people out here, and like I said, it made the most sense, and I'm glad it happened.
What also made the most sense was $100 million, let's be honest. But $68 million guaranteed, and they hope to get some stronger pass rush out of him. Also adding to that, and he signed the second biggest free agent deal. They did not, I believe they still have some cap room. They have other guys that they would like to sign, but it does not look like this is the year that they're bringing in guys for amazing salaries. Not like the old days where Dan Snyder thought he was winning in free agency if he overpaid them. Doesn't work that way. But Leo Chanel has come over from Kansas City. They've gone shopping at the Kansas City store quite a bit. Not a bad idea. Good culture there. They won a bunch. So maybe it makes sense. Leo Chanel, he's young, gets a 3-year deal, $24.7 million. He's from Wisconsin, which has produced many good linebackers over the years and many good defensive players. And he seems to have a very cheery outlook about coming to D.C.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. I bring violence, physicality. Game day, I'm bringing that energy, that juice. I'm ready to get these guys rolling. Not that they need it anymore, but I'm ready to uplift any way that I can, supplement any way I can, and again, get this rolling.
So where do you feel like your game took a big jump last year that shows where you're headed maybe?
It's just continuing to build every aspect of the game. I can really be anywhere, whether it's on the line, off the ball, defending a pass, down the field. It's just really kind of building off things. Eyes are continuing to progress and, make plays into coverage as well. So it's not only defending the run, but being able to drop back, cover a tight end, whatever, coach asked me to do, I'm ready to do it.
What intrigued you about Washington? Why did you want to come here?
It's different. I've heard great things just about the coaching staff, especially recently. I got former teammates here that are on the team now, and just the way they describe the coaching staff, just the kind of the vibe. Just the way it is, and guys are excited here. Guys are excited to show up to the building. Guys are loving football here. It's just so many good things. I really haven't heard a bad thing about the culture that they're building here, that we're building here. So I'm just excited to be part of it.
So you did reach out to guys like Wiley and Allegretti and the other former Chiefs?
Yeah. So it's nice having those resources, and I had other people that kind of knew certain things, and it's just trying to pull from every resource. And I didn't hear anything negative in terms of just the people being around, and that's a huge part of it, right? It's just, do you want to show up, and obviously everybody wants to play football, but do you want to show up and do the quote unquote boring things every single day? Do you want to be excited for it? And it helps just being around so many cool people.
Yeah, I've listened to these news conferences many times over the years, and what you still get, even off a 5-win season, is this culture is real. Whatever Dan Quinn was able to establish in year one was not lost in this past year. It's not like, we punched above our weight in the first year, and now we've come back to earth, and I don't know how this is going to work. Maybe Dan Quinn is on the hot seat this year because they won only 5 games. That doesn't seem to be the case. So that's an encouraging part of this. Also, among the signings, they get a corner who's small. Amik Robertson played well with Detroit, so he'll be there. And they think that they can move him into the slot, and Mikey Sanderstill will move outside. Calebon Chason is a defensive end. They get him. It's only a 1-year deal, so he's coming in about $11 to $12 million. Tight end from Maryland, Chig Okonkwo, who may not replace Zach Ertz in terms of always being available around the goal line and big catches, but he's younger and he gets a lot of yards after catch, so they like that. Nick Cross, who also played at Maryland, he's coming in as a safety. He was drafted in the 3rd round in 2022 and has started the past 2 years as a strong safety for the Colts, so that should be meaningful there. Some of the other ones that they picked up recently, Charles Menahue gets a 1-year deal, $7 million, had 23 career sacks, including 7 with Kansas City. He did tear his ACL in January 2024 and was not quite the same last couple of years. Mariota is back as a backup quarterback. Tim Settle, who started his career, re-signed as a defensive tackle. And then some of the other ones that you may not have been paying attention to over the weekend. De'Ami Brown is back here. De'Ami Brown had some really big catches for them. And as a matter of fact, They think that he can really be a difference maker in a number of ways on third down. They like him a lot. He gets a one-year deal, played with Jacksonville last year. They also get Jerome Ford, who is a running back from Cleveland, and they think that he can be at depth for the what they call the running back room. And Van Jefferson, wide receiver from Tennessee, also coming here. Look, this is not the big one that we were hoping for, right? This is not the big splash. But on the other hand, you just don't know how some of these players are going to develop. And I think some of what has happened in the NFL, one player can change a lot of minds. And I think what Sam Darnold was able to do in winning the Super Bowl has gotten general managers and coaches, for that matter, thinking in the direction of, okay, he hadn't had great success recently. Why is he available? Well, he's available because the team didn't think that it was necessary to keep him. For example, Dallas Goedert just re-signed with the Philadelphia Eagles, meaning that a good organization like Philly is not going to let a player like that get away. That no matter, they'll find a way with the money. I've heard this for years in the NFL. No team ever loses a player that it doesn't want to lose, especially a good organization. Sometimes there's bad accounting and they get caught with their pants down. But for the most part, players who are good for the organization stay in the organization. They find a way to keep them. So these guys were available for a reason, but so was Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold on his fifth team, available, finally lands in the right spot with the right coaches, with the right people around him. And so when you look at some of these signings, you go, okay, yeah, those are some interesting names. Like Owe was traded last year. He was traded during the season to Baltimore, and, the Ravens were competing to get to the playoffs, and they still looked at it like, we know we're not going to re-sign him. We're not going to give him what he wants. And we're going to build with what they give us from the Chargers. And that's where they sent him there. And he had a much better run with the Chargers than he had in Baltimore. Baltimore was at the bottom. This is crazy when you think of Baltimore, but Baltimore was at the bottom in sacks. They were 30th in the league in sacks. And they gave up a guy who had 7.5 of them after being dealt to the Chargers. So, again, as we say in our business all the time, we'll have to see how it all plays out. Coming up, more on the NCAA tournament and Ross Dellinger of Yahoo on what the president is trying to accomplish with his sports commission. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. Where have you gone, Cinderella? The NCAA tournament has changed with NIL and the transfer portal. Will we have another George Mason? Will we have another VCU? Don't know. But this tournament became crazy because of schools like that. And because of money, money ruins everything, right? Well, because of money, we have a big gap now between the haves and the have-nots. Oh, we got 68 teams, and we'll have some moments, and we'll have some upsets. But some of those stories that have made this tournament what it is are not impossible to happen again, but very, very unlikely. We'll get to that, plus more fallout from the 83 points that Bam Adebayo had last week against the Wizards, and Ross Dellinger, who covers college sports for Yahoo. He's really good. He was on Dan Patrick's show over a week ago after the president had what was sort of a summit, people getting together trying to figure out what to do about college sports. I don't know if they had any answers, but Dellinger has the rundown of what they are trying to accomplish. When we talk about Cinderellas, I got a good list in front of me here. Some of the schools that we've watched over the years, most of us, even I, have trouble remembering this, but I do have vague recollections of this. 1970, Jacksonville. Now, Jacksonville 4 years earlier had been an NAIA school, so they had moved up to the big time. And, basketball over any other sport, if the right guy lands in your lap, there's no telling how far you can go. And in an era where big men mattered more than anything, one of the all-time greats wound up on campus. Now, UCLA was in the midst of a streak of 7 straight national championships, but it was the period in between Lou Alcindor and Bill Walton. So Alcindor had graduated. Walton had yet to arrive on the campus. He played in his first Final Four in 1972. 1972 and then 73 had one of the all-time greatest performances. I think it was 23 of 24 or 22 of 23. He had 44 points. He was spectacular. And then UCLA lost the following year in the semifinals to NC State, and that haunted Walton to his grave. That bothered him as much as anything, that he wanted to finish his career with 3 straight national titles and was not able to do it. But Jacksonville gets this guy named Artis Gilmore. In fact, I think he had played in a junior college for a couple of years, and Jacksonville was like nowhere. Well, they rode, as they called him, the A train all the way to the final. They lost to UCLA, but Gilmore went on to become a Hall of Fame basketball player, averaged 26 points and 22 rebounds at Jacksonville. They had another big guy named Pembroke Burrows, became a cop. He was like 6'11", not quite as good, but 2 towers like that. Pretty amazing. And that, to this day, in that area in Duval County, is considered to be one of the great events that has ever happened in that area. You know, Mike Patrick, who had a long career with ESPN, also did local TV here at Channel 7. He was their announcer. Yeah, he was the announcer for Jacksonville, 1970. 1986, again, right player lands in your lap. David Robinson, who was 6'7" when he entered the academy. He was 7'1" by the time he started playing basketball at Navy. And in his, not his senior year, but his junior year, they made it to the Elite Eight. First-team All-American, led the nation in rebounds with 13, averaged almost 6 blocks a game. And they had a win over Syracuse, and they made it to the Elite Eight with the Navy. And he was, of course, the only NBA player on that team. Another forgotten Cinderella, 1992 UTEP. Don Haskins, the coach, and this was the final NCAA tournament team that he had. The following year, they played Georgetown at McDonough in the NIT, and I remember that as being monumental because here were 2 of the giants in the history of the game, tied to civil rights. You know, Don Haskins was the coach to have the 5 black starters against Kentucky in the championship game, which would have been 1966, Texas Western beating Kentucky. They made a movie called Glory Road out of it that was played at the University of Maryland, as a matter of fact. And this was the last team that he took to the tournament. And they nearly made the Elite Eight before losing to Cincinnati. Their star player was Marlon Maxey, who had transferred from Minnesota, and he had a solid career overseas in Europe. Chattanooga, 1997. They were the Southern champions, seeded 14, knocked out number 3 Georgia, number 6 Illinois, played number 10 Providence, close, lost 71-65. Johnny Taylor was their star. He was the first-round draft pick of the Magic, didn't have a great NBA career, but that was their star player, and they are the most recent number 14 seed to advance past the second round. St. Peter's was a 15 seed when they made it in 2022 to the Elite Eight. Kent State, 2002. This is cool. The star player for Kent State in 2002, when they made a run, they knocked off number 7 Oklahoma State, number 2 Alabama, number 3 Pittsburgh before losing to number 5 Indiana in the Elite Eight. Their star player and the 2002 Indiana team was the one that played Maryland for the national title. Antonio Gates, who never played a minute in the NBA, Hall of Fame tight end for the Chargers. Yeah, I've forgotten about that. But, yeah, Kent State, because we really weren't paying attention that much to Antonio Gates. Oh, yeah, he's a good college player. We had no idea he was going to become a Hall of Fame tight end. Butler, but not the Butler team that almost beat Duke, or the one that lost the following year to UConn. That would be 2010, 2011. This is really when Butler first announced itself as a Cinderella. 2003, they were a 12 seed, and they won their first game since 1962 over Mississippi State and Louisville to make the Sweet 16. Joel Cornette was a star player with them, sadly died of a heart issue at the age of 35. But that team was remembered for being the beginning, because over the next 14 years they were a regular in the tournament, and then, of course, the teams from 2010 and 2011 made the final. Bradley in 2006 barely made the field as a 13 seed, upset Kansas and Pittsburgh before losing to Memphis. Their star was Patrick O'Brien, 9th pick of the 2006 draft. LaSalle, 2013. This was their only tournament of this century, and they reached the Sweet 16 where they lost to Wichita State. That was another Cinderella from that year. 2014, Dayton made it out of the first weekend for the first time since '84. They beat Ohio State and beat a Syracuse team with 5 players on their way to the Elite Eight. Their leading scorer was Jordan Seibert, former Buckeye, went to play for in the NBA for 4 career minutes. How about that? So those are some of the Cinderellas from the past. I don't know if we're going to get one this year. I do know that there have been feelings both ways with what we saw from Bam Adebayo against the Wizards last week with 83 points. Not surprisingly, the old school Charles Barkley said this on Inside the NBA.
I like Bam Adebayo a lot. He represents everything that's great in the NBA, so I'm not going to go crazy. I didn't like some of the stuff happening in the fourth quarter. The game was already, if he had had 7, it would have still been incredible. Listen.
Yeah, but how many times, Chuck, you get a chance to put that many up when you got 9 minutes to go in the game and you got 70? I mean, everybody's in the building.
Well, first of all, he is so lucky he's playing in 2026 that we would have knocked him on his ass.
Exactly.
We would have killed him back in the day.
Exactly.
I'm not doing no hyperbole or anything. Like,
spell it, tough guy.
Let me tell you something. Ernie, in my day, if you up 20 and shoot a 3, we're going to put your ass in the stands. That was like an unwritten rule. I've asked, we call like, hey, they're up 20. If they shoot a 3, if they shoot a 3, we call timeout like, hey, I can't tell you what teammates are like, we're going to give a bonus. Every time you knock the hell out of somebody who shoot a 3, we're going to call that you get a bonus. You get out of the kiddie pool.
But Chuck, there also is an unwritten rule. When you're playing with a guy that's hot, you get it to him.
Shaq,
get it to him, right, Kenny?
I'm not 100%. I
get
mean,
it to him.
The ability, to be in position to get the spoils. Like, he had 69 going into the fourth.
With 9 minutes left.
We're going for it. Yeah. Like, we are going for it, and we're going to do everything. And it's been a history of the game, with David Robinson, I think, got 71 in the last
day of the season. Yeah.
But, like, people have gone for records because that's what it is. But the one thing is they've all put themselves in position. There are not 5 guys right now, and I cannot count. If we said from this point on, you get a chance to go get 83 points, I couldn't name 5 guys, and I don't think it would happen. Because it had to happen the way it did.
Well, there's that, but there's also the opinion of Reggie Miller. And Reggie Miller looks at this differently than those 2 old school guys. And Miller played in pretty much the same era, came out of UCLA in 1987. And Reggie Miller on NBC with Mike Tirico said that not only could this happen, he thinks that this could actually be a trend.
The way guys shoot the basketball and how prevalent the three-point line is, I think someone very well, a younger player, can get to 100. But let me just say this, because I love what the studio guys were talking about. I don't care if it's your local church league. You get a chance to go for history, you go for it. And I'm so tired of all these podcasters and all these guys that never played the game talking about, the sanctity and they ruin basketball. I do not care. 83 is 83. And for Coach Spoelstra and for Bam to be getting a lot of hate from this, your hate is misdirected because it should be towards the Washington Generals. I know they're the Wizards, but the way they were playing, they look like the Washington Generals.
Okay,
and that's where your hate should be.
But what about the people who say, and I agree with you, the 83 shouldn't be looked at in a negative way. What about the people who say the ethical part of fouling to get the ball back? You're okay with that?
I'm okay with how everything transpired.
Okay.
Because he had 31 after 1, 43 at half, and 70 at some point early on in the fourth. What do you want him to do? Self-impose and bring himself out, Jabal? I'm sorry. By any means necessary, as Malcolm X would say, I'm getting the job done.
Yeah, and I think Mike Tirico knows this. Pablo Torre did a great report on this 6-7 months ago about Wilt Chamberlain's 100 points. And the Philadelphia Warriors were fouling the New York Knicks with an enormous lead so they could stop the clock and get the ball back to Wilt. And they did, and he got to 100. Now, Reggie's saying somebody's going to get 100. I don't know. I mean, that would have to be just an incredibly hot shooting night from three. You'd almost have to shoot all your shots from three. Kobe hit a bunch of them. Wilt didn't hit any because they didn't have the three-point line when Wilt was playing. But he's saying, yeah, somebody can get to 100. I don't know. I really, Wilt was just so dominant, and the game was played differently than it is now. They still had a 24-second clock and all those things, but still, I just don't see 100 points. Remember, even though Bam Adebayo got to 83 and got past Kobe's 81, which was incredible, and give Kobe credit for this, that they weren't stopping the clock to give him the ball because they were trying to come back. The Lakers were down 20 to Toronto at home and came back and win. But even with the 83, Bam Adebayo would still need 17 more points. 17 points is a good night in the NBA. So getting to 100 means you not only have to have this unbelievable performance where you hit 83, but then on top of that, you have to have what is a good solid night. I don't know. I just, even against the Wizards, and a great point by Reggie, yes, they do look like the Washington Generals, not like the Washington Wizards. They're pathetic, and the commissioner needs to get his arms around this, and apparently there is talk that he's going to change the tanking rules. But, the combination of guy has an incredibly hot night, a team that is attempting to lose the game, that's where you get to 83. I don't blame Adebayo in any way. And as a matter of fact, he talked about how much Kobe meant to him as a player and then revealed this to Dan Patrick on Friday.
Never met him. That is the other thing.
Never met him.
Never met him. Wow. So that is that is another reason why it's so special to me, because I never got to meet him. Like, the one time I thought I was going to meet him was it was my first All-Star. I was like, if I make All-Star this year, I might get to meet Kobe. And then obviously the tragedy happened. And I remember where I was. I remember just sitting there and just started crying because I was like, bro, like, from a player standpoint, how we all appreciate that man. For what he's done for the game, for what he's done for people's mentality, to him creating a Mamba mentality was like, keep pushing forward. So I was heartbroken because I was like, I really wanted to meet my idol at some point.
Yeah, and the modern player in the NBA, even the veterans, we're at the point now they really can't remember Jordan as Jordan. Jordan's last year was 2003 when he played but that was with the Wizards. His last real year was the 1997-98 season. So you're talking about 28 years since he played at the Jordan level. How many guys in the league? You'd have to be 36, 37, and then even you're an 8-year-old kid. You don't remember him. So Kobe is the closest approximation to Jordan. Now, we can argue who's a better player, Kobe Bryant or LeBron James, and most people would say LeBron James, and would probably be right, especially in the, Kobe played 20 years, but the last few years with the Lakers, he had injuries, he tore his Achilles and things like that. But the intensity that he brought to the game, which LeBron does not. He's got great talent, and all credit to him for the career he's had and continues to have. But in terms of that, what they call now the Mamba mentality, he had that, and he got that from Jordan. He tried to become Jordan, and he damn near did it. Jordan won 6, he won 5. And, he changed his number to his high school number midway through his career to 24. There was, reason to believe he just wanted, to have a different number. I don't know. But 24 is what? One more than 23. And Kobe Bryant's goal was to get to 7 championships, win 7. He didn't do that, but he won 5. And, he won 3 of them with Shaq. And if they'd managed to keep Shaq motivated and he stayed in shape and they didn't butt heads, they could have won a lot more. Those 2 guys, Shaq is sort of the antithesis of him in terms of attitude, but in terms of talent and an ability to dominate the game at a time when big men still mattered, was a lot different than it is now. So it's pretty heartwarming story of Bam Adebayo. I don't have any ill feelings for what he did, and I look at the Wizards and go, "Yep, you deserve that. That's how you play. You reap what you sow. That's the deal. You attempt to lose games. You have a motivated player on a playoff team, and he gets hot and wants to get past Kobe, and you're letting him do it. Even though you are fouling, so what?" He did it to you because you stink and you're trying to lose and you're an embarrassment to the league. League is letting them get away with it now. We'll see what happens when the rules change, and hopefully this 3-year period of absolute crap is going to end and they're going to be a competitive team next year. So anyway, that'll do it for me. I'll be back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.